Thanks for your patience, everyone. Now for the next session, Circularity, Scale and Style, When Will We Reach Critical Mass? I'm delighted to welcome Lisa Friedman, Chief Fashion Critic for the New York Times, to the stage with Stella McCartney. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your patience and for being here with us today. I'm really excited about this because I think there's so much fashion content and fashion people here for really the first time. I think, like finance, there's never been so much at a COP before. And you know, when I first started coming to events like this, but not this, it was about 12 years ago. And I say not this because at that time, fashion was really not considered kind of a core part of the climate change conversation or the climate crisis. In fact, that was a time when people were like fond of making jokes about green being the new black, if you remember that. Not really so funny.
Making fun of me, probably.
Right, which is why I am so excited to be here with Stella McCartney, who has probably done as much as anybody, I think, in fashion to change that, and knows as much as anybody about what it will take to get us to the next stage and accelerate that change. So, Stella, welcome.
Thank you, Vanessa. So we're COP virgins.
We're COP virgins, both of us. Yeah.
Okay. Who else is here for the first time? Welcome, virgins.
So you were here last week because you were introducing
this is my second time.
A big show on materials. So I think for people who maybe didn't get to see it, do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So that means I'm not a virgin. Highly disappointed. I was here last week, and I was really excited and privileged, actually, to represent the fashion industry here at COP26. I had an installation that previewed with Prince Charles, and really just showcasing some of the facts and information about our industry being one of the most harmful in the world to the environment, and sort of giving information and also providing solutions. For me, it's so important to not terrify everybody, let everyone know that we can find a better way, that I'm currently practicing it. So if I can do it, I feel others can follow and we can scale it up. And so I had an exhibition where I showcased some of the technologies that I work with, that I've been working with for many, many years, one of which being Milo, which is bolt threads. It's my mushroom leather that we put on the runway a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago in Paris for the first time ever. And so I showcased that and the technologies there and how much more environmentally friendly that is as an option to animal products and animal agriculture and fashion. And then I had other technologies, so we showed, I can talk to them about you now or in a minute, whatever you want. There's a lot.
Well, I mean, what's interesting about these technologies, which are really exciting, is that they are potential alternatives to some of the problematic materials and systems we have now, right? But they're so at their kind of nascent stages. And we were talking after your show about the mushroom leather bags, which are super cool and very desirable. But you said at the time, I mean, you could only make about 100 of them. They had to be black because the material wouldn't really take dyes. So, I mean, the question for me is how we get from the promise of this, which is really exciting, and the lucky 100 people who get to buy a Milo bag, to a point where, you know, this is something that is much more broadly both sellable and accessible.
Yeah, and swapping out bad for good. I think what I've showcased in the installation is the journey that I've been on with the suppliers. We measure our environmental profit and loss at Stella McCartney every year, one of the few brands to do that. So we're measuring exactly what our impact is, and we've seen the most sustainable thing that we do is not use leather or any animal products, but second to that, over 60% of our sustainability is because we work at source point. So working with our suppliers is critical. So this kind of technology, we've been working with Milo since 2016, maybe, when I went to visit them. And we're just now seeing the progress that we've made. And you can see it in the installation, which I would love you all to come and see. And I showed the journey. You know, we worked with the mushroom leathers years ago, but they were like rock, you know? So we show that we're just getting to the stage now where we can create a fold in our vegan bag and it doesn't crack, for example, and that we can scale up to 100 pieces. There's other technologies there. There's one called Evernew, which is using waste. Fast fashion, every single second a truckload of fast fashion is buried or burnt, which equates to about $500 billion worth of waste and every year. And I like to look at that as business potential. So with Evernew, we took waste and we completely broke it down in a non-chemical way and rewove it into a 100% recycled garment, which is circular, which is obviously extremely important in this conversation instead of linear. But again, it was a limited edition amount. But now we can do more. So yeah, it takes far too long. But I think that the fashion industry is using fundamentally two materials, really every single day, and for hundreds and hundreds of years. So I guess it took that a long time too to get to a place where you could sell it and price it and manufacture. So I'm really keen to, I'm sorry I'm going on about it, but I'm super passionate about it, as you know. We're working with a farm in Turkey on a pilot program for regenerative cotton, and that I think is getting scalable. So they're at different stages, each and every one of them.
Right, but if it took hundreds of years to get to the two materials, which are, which two materials?
Cotton and I think like rayon probably, I don't know, I need to check, I should know that. I do know that, but I'm a bit nervous.
You know, but if it took hundreds of years to get there, we don't have hundreds of years to get to Milo or to Evernew as, you know, as the kind of standard materials for fashion. So my real question is like, how do we get there? Right, and not just you, but like we as a kind of fashion as an industry, what does it take to get there in like 5 years? Or
well, we need to want to get there collectively, and we need to see the urgency to get there. So we need to wake up, and we need to get our shit together, excuse me, New York Times. At the end of the day, we have to swap out bad industries for good. We need to remove the subsidies that currently run into the trillions that are going into bad, dirty business in fashion, and we need to put those same subsidies into clean ways of working. So instead of me piloting and financing a regenerative program in Turkey with cotton, we should have other people, you know, government should incentivize that. Young designers should be part of that. We should get tax breaks. I've said a million times before, I get 30% tax every time I take a plant-based vegan product, like these shoes, for example, into America, I'm hit with a 30% tax. And if I put a slither of pig leather onto the same product, it's gone. It's all topsy-turvy. The minute we get things in place, the minute we just say, you know what, this has got to stop, like the automobile industry, they have hard deadlines, or they're hit with fines. We have to do that. We have to change policy, and we have to force the fashion industry into working quicker. We have to create the demand. And then I do believe that we can get there. I mean, there's other areas that will get there quicker than others, but we have to also make the farmers, because we're working with farmers in fashion. I don't think people really connect the dots. I mean, we're working with crops. We've got chemicals, we've got pesticides. The chemicals are causing cancer to the people that have to work with them. It's a human rights issue as much as a global, environmental issue. We need to basically make them heroes, and we need to work with them and help encourage them that this is going to have a demand, and then I think they'll deliver for us.
But so you've got a policy section of it, right? You've got a policy segment, and you've got what can the industry itself do, and does it take the entire industry united to lobby governments to change tariffs, to commit to changing their own behavior? And if so, how do you take fashion, which is not famously the most like hands across America kind of industry, and get it to coordinate its ask like that?
It's funny, I came back from COP last week, and I told my son, who's 16, what I was doing and where I'd been. I was like, I was here and I was doing this, and I showed him my wish to stop animal, agriculture and fashion, and my petition that I've created. I showed him the video, and he was like, Mom, the fashion industry must really hate you. And I was like, oh, God, yeah, I guess maybe. But we have to work together, but I think realistically, we have to work together, because I don't think anyone volunteers to work in a harder way. Like, it's not easy what I do. I've been doing it from day one, so that makes it easier. But rewinding the process is hard. It's going to take a lot of money, a lot of investment, a lot of time. So I think consumers at the end of the day are the heroes. and we're all consumers, right? I mean, even, I have to say, I've really enjoyed my time at COP. It's been such an eye-opener, but you know, they're serving beef here and fish here. And like, when are we gonna connect the dots? Because I think the future of fashion looks bleak unless we step up. We all know that the fashion industry is obsessed with being relevant and on trend. I have to say, I've never felt more fashionable than being at COP26. I'm like, we're so on trend, guys, like, and we're not even wanting to be or meaning to be. So that's for me the big shift. And when I've been here, my biggest inspiration has been the young activists, the people whose voices really need to be heard. You know, I came away feeling so privileged that I was this kind of fashion designer, daughter of, you know, privileged person that has a platform to have a conversation with you and bring issues to light. But really, the future are the Gretas, they are the Vanessas, they are the people that have been on this stage before, and, you know. And so I think the industry needs to become collectively aware and step up, but also I think consumers, we need to just not stand for it anymore.
I mean, one of the questions I have, you know, speaking of consumers, is how, as an industry, fashion can make its efforts toward taking responsibility for its own materials, its own products, actually understandable for the people who are buying them so that they can make educated decisions and essentially vote with their wallets, which will in turn force the industry to become more responsible. Because honestly, like, I find much of this information, and like, I did love your Milo leather presentation, but a lot of it is entirely impenetrable. You know, the words we use, the language, the chemistry is really hard to understand when all you really want to buy is a cute sweater.
Yeah, but I mean, the wording now is so generic, it's so greenwashed. The word, I mean, does anyone even know what the word sustainable means? It's used everywhere now. It's like so washed out, you know, it's such a bummer. Food industry is a good example. I met someone here actually at one of the talks that I went to, and he was barcoding and he had all the traceability on food. Why the hell don't we do that for fashion?
Why don't we do that for fashion?
Well, exactly. And why are we spending billions, quite frankly, on content in the fashion industry and not having the right kind of content? Like, for me, the exhibition I just did, I have QR codes everywhere. You put it up and you see what this product is, where it came from, and why it's better than the conventional harmful product. I mean, why am I the only person doing that in this industry? I feel that we can do it. I know, and the thing is, we're a great industry. Like, I'm not down on our industry. I love being a fashion designer, and I love all of the people that I work with. And I get into a room, I'm in partnership with LVMH. They've been huge supporters of me being here. And, you know, everybody has a desire to change. I think everyone's just a little bit kind of like, how do we do it? So I think information is key, but I know we can do it with using technology and data. I mean, we have so much investment as an industry. We just need to maybe push a little aside for this cause.
I mean, talking of LVMH, it is your partner. It is the biggest luxury group in the world, has over 75 brands. You know, arguably, wither LVMH, wither the industry. You know, it's the gravitational pull. If anyone could effect change, could make, you know, huge brands use QR codes, could do all of that, they could do it. Are they doing it?
Well, we're talking about it. I mean, look, you know me. I'm a fighter, and I believe very much in infiltrating from within. So I'm the Trojan horse, if you like, and I'm in there. I've got the ear of Monsieur Arnault. He's passionately engaged. And yeah, I believe this is at the forefront of what they want to work on in the future. They're actually funding the regenerative cotton program that we're doing, and actually funded my being here too with the installation. So it's something that very much so, look, you know what, they have to, and they know it, and they will.
So are you their pilot program?
Am I their pilot program? I don't know. I mean, I've got a pretty good track record. We've been going 20 years, so it's not like we have a sustainability in that respect. And, you know, for me, it's always a really hard one because I know that I'm having this conversation, and yet I'm creating products. So I'm a bit like, that is a kind of glitch in morals, if you like, you know. But for me, I'm doing it because I'm really adamant that I have to show my industry that you can have a successful business, you can create jobs, you can inspire young designers, young CEOs, thousands and thousands of young creatives to want to come into the fashion industry in a better way. And until I feel that I have more of my peers working in that way. I feel like I have to kind of be in the room showing them that you can also make money. You know, I think it's a really weird one. I struggle with that. And I think that there is this myth that if you're more sustainable or if you're doing better in business for the planet, you're not actually allowed to be successful. And for me, it should absolutely be the opposite. I think that we should be celebrating young businesses that work in this way, young designers, encouraging them, giving them tax breaks, giving them incentives, and showing that this is truly the future of fashion.
So when you're in the room with Bernard Arnault and the rest of the board at LVMH, what are you whispering in their ears?
Well, am I allowed to do I'm like, well, I had a conversation saying, look, guys, I really want to do this petition against animal leather and animal fur at COP26. You would have thought they would have been like, excuse me, we use a lot of that. And they were like, absolutely. I'm having those conversations because, we're all adults in the room and we all know that it has to be addressed. The elephant in the room is going to stay alive as long as I'm having that conversation.
So what do you do then with a brand like Fendi in your stablemate, which is based on fur? How do you convince them to change their ways?
I love that we're having this conversation. I didn't see this turn. Well, I talked to the creatives. I talked to the designers and my friends. I actually judged an award there recently, and I was with Kim and a lot of the designers, and he came up to me and, oh, don't have a go at me, don't have a go at me. So, they're all terrified of me. It's like, don't tell me off, we're going to use
Very
recycled
scary.
fur. And I was like, recycled fur? That's the biggest cop-out I've ever heard. So I'm telling them all off. And I'm also putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm showing them that there's alternatives, The synthetic furs that we use at Stella, some of which are amazing technologies, are 26% kinder to the environment than real fur. At some stage, somebody has to have a conversation about animal rights. It seems to be left out of the conversation a little here at COP, and that, for me, is where I started. It's how I even came into this room. And then there was a connection between farming animals and cutting down our rainforests. So, look, I can only do what I can do, but you guys have a responsibility, if I may. The New York Times, you're writing about every single one of these houses. Vanessa, you're writing about them all. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Seriously. Seriously, it's not all on me. Why don't you tell them off? They listen to you.
I'm interviewing you.
Seriously.
So then, this brings me to, no, it's fine. This brings me to, how do you move out of luxury and into the rest of the fashion world? Because in order to really move the needle, right, it can't just be people who can afford the most expensive bags, the most expensive products, the most expensive fake furs. It has to be all of us, right? And for most of us, the choice of whether you can buy something is also a choice about, where are you spending your money? Is it on food? Is it on education? Is it on housing? Is it on fashion? So how do you then kind of filter down? What does it take?
Well, I spoke about the waste conversation of fast fashion. It's easy for me to say that, right? I can make my own clothes and I get them at a discount, clearly. So the reality is that this is an exciting business opportunity moment. When I was younger and I wanted to be a fashion designer, I didn't have access to the kind of brands that I do now, and I just wore vintage clothes. And by far, I was way cooler for dressing like one-offs. I was more creative than ever. And at charity shops, for me, the business models that are out there now, renting the runway, renting clothes, swapping, creating communities of like-minded people, it's critical now. And also trying to find business opportunities and using that waste. At Stella, we're nearly run out of using all of our waste fabrics now. We've just been putting them back onto our runways. And now we have this amazing program, actually, with the group, where they have all of their waste, and anyone can use it. And actually, not enough people know about it, and I'd love everyone to learn about it now. And we've just been using it in our previous collection. So it's this sort of database that's online, available to anyone, and you can buy LVMH's waste material, which, by the way, is major material. It's like good stuff.
What's it called?
Oh, I'll find. I can't remember what it's called. It's something great. Can't remember the name. But it is, things like that. I think that this is the moment And also for me, one thing that I think is really important is, again, coming back to the consumer, because people wear fast fashion up to 3 times before they throw it away. Sometimes it's still got the label on. There's such disregard for a clothing accessibility at that price point. And how on earth are we not all connecting the dots on human rights? I mean, how on earth is a product getting from source into a, online or retail experience for like £3? It's not. I can't even buy a button for £3 if you do it right, We need to connect the dots. We need to just ask ourselves if that's okay morally with us. But also, I think if you can save up, if you can buy, if you can buy something better, it will hold its value. Like I kind of sleep at night knowing that I'm making products that are designed well, manufactured well, in the right way, and they will last. We go through such rigorous testing that these boots are going to last lifetimes, and they'll be handed down generation to generation, and they will, if you want to resell them, they will hold their value, if not go up in value. So I think there's sort of 2 different ways to look at it, I think.
But then as a designer, how do you think about the idea that on the one hand, you are making products that last, that you want to last, that you want people to keep, and you want to convince people to keep, but on the other hand, you are a business and you are making many new products many times a year. How do you balance those 2 sides of the equation so that it ends up at, at 0?
Well, you have to just be efficient and you have to be mindful. Since COVID, it's actually one of the good things to come out of COVID for us is we just went, right, I was like, even actually before, I think I told you this, even before COVID hit, I came off my runway show and I was like, we're just using waste, guys. I don't want to buy anything. Show me all the buttons we've got, because we don't throw anything away. Every other fashion house either burns their prints or so we keep everything. So I was like, right, what's in our warehouses? And I think reducing what you produce has been really important to us. So going deeper into what we make and just getting tighter and cleaner and focusing. And what was the rest of your question?
Have you reduced what you produce?
Yeah.
By how much?
Oh, God, Vanessa. Should I lie? I actually don't know, but I don't know. I do know on that first collection we reduced, oh my God, like nearly 40, 50%. Yeah. We reduce, and we try to stay there. But we also, we're making product. I'm not going to try and pretend that I'm not, because clearly I am. But like I say, I want to make the best product I can make, show my industry and lead by example. And then I can just slowly, reverse out of the room and let everyone else take over and have these problems.
Do you take your products back? Say I buy the boots, and I love the boots, I love them for 2 years, and I'm like, I don't love them, and it's hard for me to walk in heels like that now. Can I bring them back to your stores and say, here?
We don't have that offer. We have been working with people like The Real for we were the first luxury house to work with them, because everyone else is like, you can't do secondhand. Oh my God, not in luxury. So we were all for it, obviously. So we work with partners to do that. We have a certain thing called 23 Old Bond Street. For me, I was always looking at our sampling, and when we did all our fittings, and we had so many beautiful pieces, but they always sort of went into a sample sale, or they kind of just went, or I never knew really where they went. So, and a lot of them are one-off pieces, or if there's cancellations, or so we do things like that, where those become sort of celebrated rather than disregarded, and we kind of try and make them have a second life. We do, obviously, we fix things, we keep things alive. If somebody comes in with any issue on a product they've bought, we mend it and we provide that service.
I mean, a number of brands are now doing that, right? Gucci started it. Other brands, Diesel's doing it.
I think it's something we're just not at that scale yet at Stella. We've talked about it, obviously, and I would love to do that. You have to, the problem is that we're not a huge brand, and if you're a huge brand, you can pretty much do anything, So, and you also have to focus your efforts with your resources. So it's something we'd love to do, but at the moment we currently partner with other businesses to do that. And also it's nice to give other businesses, a platform and a business, essentially.
But wouldn't it be incredibly useful information for you to know how long a consumer, kept your product, where it went next? Because one of the things that really struck me when I first started thinking about these issues is that, even the companies, even the brands that could measure the impact of their products often measured them from cradle to gate, right? As soon as it left the store, people were like, ooh, don't know. What happens
Well, I mean,
to it?
data is critical in this conversation. I've been talking a lot to the people, some of the people here that I met at COP, you know, trying to get a little more data in our industry. You know, a lot of the information that I'm working with is old, because who wants to really own up to how many trucks are actually burnt and buried? You know, there's probably more. How, you know, hundreds and hundreds of millions of animals are killed for handbags and shoes, and how much rainforest is cut down every second, how many football pitches a minute. You know, this is information it's old data. So yeah, I mean, hell, I'd love to track every single one of my products, and hopefully we'll get there. But again, it comes to your investment and how big you are as a company. You know, this stuff it's not cheap. So again, it would be great to be incentivized and have some tax breaks or some, you know, some government. You know, the reality is I'm obviously advocating for all of this. I pay my British taxes, and half of my tax money, or whatever percentage of it, goes into subsidizing, you know, killing cows and farming with chemicals and pesticides and killing our oceans with fishing. And I'm like, I don't even morally believe in those things, and yet I'm part of subsidizing them. Why are we putting trillions and trillions and trillions of pounds into subsidizing bad? We need to flip that out. We need to incentivize. I'm an organic farmer, if you can believe it, and, you know, I have no incentives. It's got to now get to a stage where, yeah, I'd love all that data. I'd love to track it. Maybe I could get some help.
Okay, so 3 things. I have one last question, and then I'm going to open this up to the floor, because I know you guys probably have a lot of questions, and we were running late. 3 things that fashion needs to do immediately, concrete things, to try to accelerate its move toward critical mass in terms of responsibility to the earth.
You know what I'm going to say. It comes back to my policy. Stop using animal products is really the first thing. The second thing is stop using animal products. And the third thing is stop using animal products. I mean, it's by far the biggest impact. And and not only that, it's deeply cruel and mean, and like blood is being shed everywhere. And where? It's also shameful. There's so much shame. And also, I come back to the human rights, because I think it resonates with people sometimes more than animal rights. You know, there are people working all around the globe for less than a minimum wage in abattoirs, so everyone can have a fancy bag. Like, is that right? Do you think they want to go to work in the morning? At what stage do we address that? And where is this being done? This is an industry that is... There is shame attached to it, because there's no pride. I challenge you, Vanessa, to get into one of these factories where they're killing animals for these skins, crocodiles, whatever, to handbags that have thousands and thousands of pounds price attached to them. I challenge you to get in there, because if it's all so clean and luxurious and fashionable and fabulous, surely they're going to open the doors to Vanessa Friedman.
I take you up on that challenge. But before I get to the abattoir, though, you know, I do think that the one thing, you know, that is immediately actionable too for everybody in this room is if you agree to act on this, you know, you can do that. That the single fastest way to get any company to change its policies is to stop buying something, because none of them want to sit around with giant warehouses full of expensive product that they cannot sell. Right? So actually, like, when it comes to fashion, consumers absolutely have all the power, right? You guys can all do this. And thinking about what you buy is the fastest way to effect change backwards. So now, over to you. Feel free to ask Stella whatever you want.
Be gentle.
Hi, Stella. Thank you so much. So inspirational. One point, its known as Source is the deadstock platform for LVMH. So you can note that down for everybody else.
Thank you.
Looked it up. Yes. I've looked it up before. But just a quick question. You talked about kind of investment and the big fashion houses, and you mentioned that you're kind of the smaller one. And if you go down even smaller to kind of the inspiring designers and the startups that are coming out, and then maybe also considering how everything's sustainable now, we're all a sustainable brand, and maybe that's being greenwashed, what would be kind of your one piece of advice to kind of the next up-and-coming eco-designer who wants to kind of get in this space and make a difference? Thanks.
Thank you. Well, look, you know, I think eco or not eco, you need to have a level of passion, you have to have a level of creative talent, and you have to have a really hard-working ethic. You know, I think anyone, regardless of kind of what you're doing in our industry, it's a hard industry. And I do believe, look, I'm not perfect. We're not perfect at Stella McCartney. I'm like the first person to say it. We have areas where we use conventional materials where we have to. But I think, really reaching out to suppliers, reaching out and asking questions, gaining information, and just really meaning it. Because I think that's such a head start, having authenticity and really having that passion on this it'll get you everywhere. It'll take you through. Because as I say, at the moment, it's not as easy to work this way. And at a certain level, you're penalized. I talk about the taxes, I talk about these things. So, you just have to really want it and fight for it. I think being here at COP, I've seen, young people are fighting for this. And it makes me very emotional. It actually makes me really emotional. So I think if you're a young designer or a young CEO, a young printmaker, a young anything, and you want to work in this way, fight. At the moment you're fighting for your lives.
There's a lot of hands. It's like trees.
Hello. Thank you for the talk. I'm just trying to think about the people on the other end of the industry, the fast fashion brands, because they do a lot of volume, and volume is behind everything that they do, and it's part of their waste, is part of their, maybe an inextricable part of their strategy, because you have to put it out on the market for it to be chosen in the first place. And when you have Zara's and H&M and Primark and all of these people that do massive volumes, is there an alternative business plan that you think they could take?
God, it's so hard, that one, isn't it? I do struggle with that answer. Luckily, I'm not doing that for a living. I think, again, if you talked about actually some of the richest brands in the world there, the ones you've just mentioned are some of the most rich, powerful brands in the world. If they took some of their money and invested it into these small technology companies that I'm currently showcasing here at COP, it would change the landscape. Like I mentioned, Econil, that are taking their waste and making new garments. Those garments that we've made with them, you can make another garment out of, and another one. A completely, the life cycle is long. So I think if those companies were inclined to invest in technologies that could support doing something really exciting and sexy and creative with their waste, then I think that could be amazing. If I were them, I would definitely look at that.
The other thing about waste, which I think we haven't talked about so much, but is important for designers at any level of the industry, right, is thinking about what happens to a garment after its first life. So you have to think when you're making something about how you unmake it. Because if you don't, it isn't necessarily recyclable. You can't necessarily give it another life. If you can't take all the plastic paillettes off it, it doesn't matter if you've got a biodegradable base. So I think it's a
that
way.
Again, is information, though, isn't it? I think, we all think we're doing really well when we recycle things. 1% of fashion is recycled. 2% of plastic is recycled. So it's not like we're talking big numbers here, and I think we need that information to know. How do you even know how you're breaking down stuff? Even I'm confused when it's like, this is biodegradable. It's like, okay, how is it biodegradable? That is a tricky one, how to dismantle.
Hi there. I just want to ask one question. Could the simple message of buy less clothes but more durable clothes be one that is even compatible with the fashion industry? Yes,
only because that's what I'm sort of hoping. The luxury area of fashion and how you define that is sort of up to you. I guess it's a price point. Also a quality and of design and make and everything. Those products are made to last you forever. They should be, as I said before, handed down generation to generation. They should be fixed if there's an issue. There's a level of pride and sort of, you feel honored to own one of them, right? Isn't that the whole point? Isn't that the dream? Aren't we all escaping into that? And with that, yeah, there should be an element of durability for sure. The fast fashion, obviously, is a completely down the other scale conversation.
I think we've got time for about 2 more questions, so. In the back.
Hello. You were talking about LVMH, and in a way, LVMH in some ways represents kind of this illusion of luxury. I don't consider LVMH a luxury brand. I think that it also caters to people who are among the most polluting on the planet. And I think as a young person, I mean, I was born in 1995. That's the first year that there ever was a COP. These conversations have been around for longer than that, although fashion is now new to the kind of core of it. The idea of consumption has been around for a long time, and I think for too long, the responsibility is pushed onto the consumer in an unfair way. We see this, for example, with the fossil fuel industry, who coined the term carbon footprint as a way to platform an individual as the same importance as those massive multinational companies, who have by far a much bigger responsibility than young people or just the individual at all. So my question is, how can, on the one hand, yes, we know that these companies are changing. LVMH is doing more investment in sustainable cotton and so on, but I don't know if that's because they want to do the right thing or because that's just now what's profitable and what's becoming trendy and what people are asking for. So how can, from the inside, you encourage or we encourage other people in positions of power to make these changes and to take that leap of faith, which, yes, it might cost them profit margins, but right now it's costing us our livelihoods and our careers.
Yeah, I mean, round of applause to you. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I agree. It's not like we can sit here and go, you know what, kids, it's on you. Absolutely not. It's, for me, there's different angles, I very much, after I went to the G7, which all of a sudden I seem to be a politician, I just wanted to be a fashion designer. But I was in the room with like the world leaders, and I noticed very quickly that if we can't get policy change in our industry, if we can't just get some kind of policy in place to protect all of us from our industry and its harm, it's incredible how the fashion industry has just gone under the radar. It's like, don't notice us, don't, look at us, look at us, look at us, but don't look at us when it comes to that part of the conversation. And I said to the leaders at G7, I was like, it's easy for you guys to sit and go, oh, all the automobile industry needs to hit the, electric cars by this date. If not, you're going to get, you're going to get a charge, or airline, you're going to have a thing, or fuel, or And I was like, because there's 5 or 6 car companies. There's 10 airlines. Like, you're talking tiny amounts of brands. There's what feels like gazillions of fashion houses. We've got to have a method to measure. We have to have a method to measure across the board, because right now some people are doing it, and it's like, we need to have one standard measurement for the whole industry. We need help on that. There needs to be law on that. Absolutely, we have to have some kind of laws in place, and I firmly believe that, and I think we all, how on earth can we be expected to do this for our politicians? They need to step up, and then our industry will have to fall into place. We've seen industries in our history that didn't like the sound of change, and they just changed, and slavery. Thank God, it's not around anymore. And none of those people in the position of power making all that money wanted that industry to stop. It was morally wrong. And at some stage, morals have to come into this conversation.
When you said that to the leaders at G7, what did they say back to you?
Huh?
When you said that to the leaders at the G7, what did they say back to you?
They were shocked, because they're talking about other issues all the time. Every time I brought it up in that room, they can't believe the tax I pay on my vegetarian products. They're like, what? John Kerry's like, what? 30%? I mean, they can't believe it, because I just don't think people think of the fashion industry. They don't think about how we are sourcing, how we're working, as I said, with crops and farmers and seasons and pesticides. I mean, we all know that there's a saying that you can tell the next color that's going to be on trend by looking at the color of the waters near the dye mills. I mean, this is stuff that we know. I don't think world leaders, they have other things in their radar that maybe the media, top of the list, but we're really high on that list now for change. I just don't think that people want to equate such a beautiful escapism industry with damage to our environment.
It's about time. All right, last question, guys.
Hi, I just wanted to say that I think most people would agree that buy once, buy better, and buy something that lasts, it would be the best way to do things. But obviously, that's only possible with a degree of privilege that allows you the financial freedom to do that. As a luxury brand, how do you think, or do you think you have a role in helping all fashion brands improve their kind of environmental standards, their human rights standards, and their overall quality, so that every person has an opportunity to buy better quality clothes and things that will last?
Well, I mean, I seem to have a role because that's why I'm here today. It's not a role that I was expecting, but I do, however, feel like really privileged to have a voice on this subject. As I said before, I feel like I have extraordinary privilege in that you're listening to me, and I think that is a big conversation for me at COP, is who is being heard, who is here. This is invitation only, and I think it's a privileged invitation. And for me, the voices of the people that this is hitting hardest, that need our help the most, don't have enough, they're not being heard at this table enough. So I guess for now, I'm the one in my industry that is representing us, and there's more, there's plenty more. What was the rest of your question? Do I feel I have responsibility? I mean, I guess I don't know, Vanessa. You tell me. I don't know.
Think we all have responsibility. Is the point of this. So thank you, Stella, for making us hear that. Thank you, guys.